Another episode, and it's another good one. The Boys Club, starring this guy who looks like John Sim but isn't. The episode clearly knows that it's good and doesn't give a shit because it's trying to annoy me by casting someone who looks like John Sim. He's a local gangster, and unlike the drug lord in episode 1, he doesn't chase after people who annoy him. He has them covered in petrol and burned. That'll teach him for doing something that brought that punishment down upon him.
It's true what I say then. You know where you're going? You belong in the Boys Club. Run.
So what's the Boys Club of the title? Well, I'll let not John Sim explain.
Well, it's a bit of a get-together for all the big names. Bit of a fucking villains drinking club. Apparently it's where I belong.
How does one get into the Boys Club? You can't simply advertise in a local newspaper. And no, I'm not leading into a joke where they do just that. I'm not quite that cheap. No, to get into the Boys Club you need to find the address of where they meet. And how do you do that? Well, by going into an abandoned warehouse and finding a severed hand with the address written in it, in a box. Now, as this comes right after Pineapple Chunks, and that episode featured severed body parts in a box too, I feel I should let you know. No, this has nothing to do with aliens. Anyway, not John Sim's lackey sees that the severed hand has a ring attached to it, and before you can say, "My precious," Smeagol has beaten Deagle to death for it.
I want you to know I couldn't have done any of this until I found this suit.
So this suit brings him power. I'm not 100% sure about how that works. The clothes maketh the man, maybe? A placebo, perhaps? Would he have been just as powerful in any old suit, or is it just that one? And why, oh why, does he have to look even more like John Sim when wearing that suit? If he starts humming Scissor Sisters, my bad memories of the last of the Time Lords will start to affect the episode's final score. So he makes his way to the address, an old-style club. Now, notice how this looks. How it looks more like a film than, say, some home movie footage someone roughly edited together. Hard to believe this is the same show that gave us Dead Meat. I mean, this even has decent music that sets the fucking scene. What an innovation! Anyway, he had to bring tribute, so he did the obvious thing. He beat the fuck out of his father and tied him up. His dad's a police officer, so that'll impress the gangsters for some reason that they don't explain. His dad is played by Leslie Grantham, which is hilarious casting if you're familiar with the guy. Why? Because he made a career out of playing villains and gangsters, and then became infamous for masturbating on a webcam dressed as Captain Hook while off stage at a performance of Peter Pan for children.
I'm tired of being a nutter.
That's why I knocked you out, tied you up and put a bag over your head, so I won't be crazy anymore.
Gents, I'd like you to meet my old man. George Scratch. He's a copper.
Welcome to the Boys Club, Mr. Scratch.
Blah 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 blah, we're talking like we're in a Guy Ritchie film, but somehow we're not irritating as fuck while we do it. Ooh, core blimey, apples and pears, etc. So, while not John Sim and this guy, who looks enough like Kevin Spacey to be compared to him, talk about power and the philosophy of being villains, the other two, who resemble Matt Lucas from Little Britain and Henry from Drop the Dead Donkey, have beaten not John Sim's dad to death. As often happens with dads killing, a beautiful undercurrent of menace develops.
Of course, if that was my dad, I'd want to give him a decent send-off. But I can understand that things haven't been too easy for you. What with you being too big for your boots and all. Now, don't you be long. Because the beer's getting warm.
And now it's not John Sim's turn to do something. He has to cut his dad into pieces and feed him to a pig. Why? Because police are sometimes called pigs, and feeding a pig to a pig is obviously hilarious. Plus, it lets us have this scene.
Alright, son. Got a new hobby. You're a silly sod, aren't you?
Yes, the dad's still alive and conscious and able to speak, which means the other two didn't do their job very well. It's a good thing too, because the dad needs to tell not John Sim that he's a wuss and a failure. Just the sort of things you really want to tell someone with a hammer and a chisel who's standing over your prone body.
You can do this if you want. I guarantee they're already laughing about you behind your back.
You don't know him.
Oh, I know, boy. I know him better than you ever will. You'll never know. Never.
Well, can you think of a better way to win an argument, apart from rational debate? Didn't think so. We then have good scenes. Damn good scenes. It looks like a feature film, a good feature film, about London gangsters. I don't know quite how they managed it. Maybe all the money from half the earlier episodes was used here to make it look good. I really don't know. Oh, and don't be casually homophobic when there's a gay gangster about.
Go on, you big puff. Give him some more meat. I'm not a puff!
I'm an homosexual.
I think we better talk business.
Now the question comes to mind, how exactly do three crime lords run this place by themselves? Sure, they have a barman, a pig and a doorman, but they really should have more people. This is a big place, it needs cleaning, and someone needs to look after the dead children that are cut up yet somehow still alive.
Fuck me.
Wuss that he is, this freaks not John Sim right out and he makes a run for it.
Mr. Scratch!
Even if I was the killer, no matter how far or how fast you ran, I'd still find you at the last minute and kill you anyway.
I'm beginning to think you're fannying us about, Mr. Scratch. You talk about power, and when I show you some, you scream blue murder.
Who are you?
Of course he recognises him as a long-dead gangster and yet again walking dead people in London. Oh, Urban Gothic, you were doing so well. 3 episodes without hitting, we're right back here again. You've given me enough walking dead people this episode to cover the 3 without any. At least this episode is something that most others with Walking Dead don't. It's done well. Brilliantly well. But what sort of Walking Dead are they? Zombies? Vampires? Ghosts? I have no idea because they don't tell us. All they say is that they're definitely not ghosts.
Ghosts don't bleed. Cigarette? I think you should take that, don't you?
So, what's going on? Well, it's all a setup to get rid of crap punks who think they're awesome, and who set not John Sim up, but his dad, of course, who's alive again, and couldn't have set it up because he had nothing to do with not John Sim finding out about the boys' club. But it's okay, because with his dad being alive again, we have interest for the 3 episodes with no Walking Dead. The dad feeds his still-living son to the fucking pig while giving the same monologue to his son that his son gave to him before he killed him. It's gripping! Brilliant stuff of the quality I wish the show had reached more often. Then, of course, he writes the address on his son's hand, cuts the hand off while taking a photograph of him, and lets him see a wall of pictures of the previous members of the boys' club, all with pictures taken the moment their hands were cut off. So the dad's joined the elite of London's criminal zombie underworld and is now part of the Man's Club.
Welcome to the men's club, Mr. Scratch.
And we end on the wall of photos and the fucking pig. This is artistically the height of Urban Gothic. It looks brilliant and the acting is just as good. It's the best purely horror story of the series and will make a brilliant feature film if handled correctly. It's the shining of Urban Gothic and it's great. I love it. It's the last of the 3 excellent episodes in this series. If you want to see the best that the show has to offer this series, then just see Vampirology, Pineapple Chunks and The Boys Club.